Niger Republic remains in the firm grip of military dictatorship as junta defied ultimatum by the Economic Community of West African States to relinquish power and restore democracy in the country. President Bola Tinubu last night met with governors of 5 Nigerian states sharing boundary with Niger Republic at State House Abuja to consider options in the bid to restore democratic governance in the troubled republic. Curiously, ECOWAS remained unusually quiet as the one-week ultimatum handed the Niger junta expired, with many people, both home and away, wondering if the regional body would still go ahead to activate military action as it initially threatened.
The situation in Niger Republic appears to be getting messier as the military junta has now cut ties with Nigeria, Togo, France, and the United States over the deadline issued to the coup plotters to restore democracy in the country. Nigeria and ECOWAS have had to quickly review the situation in Niger after an emergency session in Abuja, where a one-week ultimatum was issued to the military junta to restore democracy in the landlocked country. ECOWAS agreed to place tougher economic sanctions on the military junta, which includes closing all land borders with Niger, cutting off electricity, banning all flights in and out of the country, as well as stopping goods in transit to Niger, especially from Lagos and Eastern Sea ports. This was as the sub-regional body called on member states to stand by for possible military action. The chiefs of defense staff in ECOWAS have also met in Abuja to strategize on a possible military action with recommendations for boots on the ground sent to the ECOWAS heads of states and government for approval. The ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff, however, prioritized diplomacy ahead of any military engagement in Republic of Niger. In Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu, who is also the chairman of ECOWAS heads of states and government, has written to the Senate, the country's highest lawmaking body, over the situation in Niger and the resolutions reached by ECOWAS to restore democracy in the country and restate ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. In response, Senate called on Tinubu and ECOWAS to explore political and diplomatic options against the deployment of any military interventions. Niger borders 7 states in the north of Nigeria, and there are concerns that military engagement in that country could create serious humanitarian crisis across the border into Nigeria. A number of northern interest groups, including lawmakers from the region, have kicked against military action and some of the economic sanctions aimed at forcing the military junta to relinquish power in Niger Republic. But what options are available to ECOWAS to explore in its quest to restore democracy after the expiration of its 7-day ultimatum, asking the junta to pack and go?
The junta remains defiant and held a rally in the capital, Niamey. They have ordered the complete closure of Niger's airspace until further notice and put security forces at the border on high alert, citing threats from ECOWAS.
Faced with the threat of intervention that is becoming clearer through preparation from a neighboring country, Niger's airspace is closed as of today, Sunday, August 6, 2023, for all airports until further notice. Any attempt to violate national airspace will be met with an energetic and instantaneous response. Niger's armed forces and all our defense and security forces, backed by the unfailing support of our people, are ready to defend the integrity of our territory and the honor of our homeland. To this end, the National Council for Safeguarding the Homeland launches a vibrant appeal to the youth, to the worthy daughters and sons of our country, to stand ready to defend the homeland. Long live the National Council for Safeguarding the Homeland. Long live the dignified and sovereign people of Niger. Long live an independent Niger.
Yesterday was the expiration of the 7-day ultimatum given by ECOWAS to the Niger military junta. Rufai, your take on this report and story?
So I'd like to start by quoting the song from Fela, which is Beast of No Nation. And he used the words advisedly. He says, these disguising leaders, oh, now what for them? They're whole meeting everywhere. There is America. They call them United Nations. So fella presses further to say, waiting united inside United Nations. No be dear Thatcher and Argentina day during the Falkland War. So I would like to ask, waiting be the unity inside ECOWAS? No be dear Mali and Burkina day. Truth is, we deceive ourselves so much in Nigeria. It has not shown all of us that ECOWAS is split down the middle. Some other countries under military junta under ECOWAS are saying, we are not going to support this. Some other countries are advisedly and cautiously watching. If we go ahead, it will be the burden for Nigeria to bear alone. And that's why we must be cautious. And that's why I'm happy the Senate has also spoken as regards this. Secondly, wars cost money. We have an economic imbalance in our country as we speak. Thirdly, there are cultural ties between the northern part of Nigeria and Niger. We all know how we wanted to build a rail line into Maradi. So maybe if the rail line had been built into Maradi, would we have shut down the rail line or bombed the rail line now? Because we're having a war with Niger, or we want to go into a war with Niger, or want to have military action with Niger? These are some posers. Honestly, I feel the initial decision by ECOWAS to even suggest a military action was too hasty. And I think it has also hardened the school plotters or the scoopists in Niger. We could have exhausted every means possible before we looked at any last means possible. And even at that, a military action would not have been the best order of the day. Because like Mr. Fallon argues, you still even need to involve the United Nations, Article 53. So what? You can't just invade a sovereign nation. Secondly, what were we thinking about? Jean Afrique released a report recently about the state of health and the state and the conditions of President Bazoum. When he was first captured, he was kept under a basement. Afterwards, he was brought out, his phone confiscated. He hardly gets meals to eat. In a case where you invade, are we not putting President Bazoum's life in jeopardy? Apart from the cultural ties and all of that. Now we are seeing the true nature of things. And now some countries in ECOWAS are pretty much going to say, oh, it's Nigeria, you are the largest party here, go ahead and fight. And for also those that make the argument that, can't we go in and the UN will help, and the US will help us? I say, help what? When the US said they were going to back us up on the days of ECOMOG, did they back us up? I'm sure some other people will say the case is different. But we should be cautious because we will just get into a place where we'll be fighting a lot of proxy wars. At first, don't forget, you have Chinese interests there. In all of this, China has not said anything. Hope we all know that China owns the Suez refinery in Niger. That supplies the States. We have French and uranium interests there. Then we have American interests there. America has got a very big base there in the desert in Niger. So do we want to get ourselves involved in all this proxy war? If all these superpowers cannot agree amongst themselves, is it us with our own challenges that want to pull ourselves in? I think the Senate has led the way. And all the Senate has said, if I'm to summarize, and kudos to the Senate. When the Senate does well, I praise them. Kudos to the Nigerian Senate. All the Senate has said is that we should be circumspect in our actions before we take them.
Okay, what are the facts of the case? The ECOWAS Council of Heads of State and governments imposed sanctions on Niger, demanding that Mohamed Bazoum, president of Niger, held in captivity, should be released, and that failing this, all of those sanctions that they outlined will apply, including blockade of Niger, including closure of borders against Niger, and all of those. And that if by yesterday, Niger did not agree, ECOWAS will consider the option of military intervention. The latest development is that, number one, the president of Nigeria has now gone, as I assume other presidents who were at that meeting, because that meeting was boycotted, where that decision was taken, was boycotted by a number of West African countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Conakry, and also Niger. And their position was that they were supporting Niger and that they did not think that ECOWAS is in a position to urge military intervention. But the president of Nigeria, even as chairman of the ECOWAS heads of state, cannot go to war without seeking the approval of the National Assembly. Section 5 sub 4, municipal law, applies in this regard. Section 5 sub 4 says that for you to commit Nigeria to a war activity, you have to seek the approval of the National Assembly at a joint sitting. However, Section 5 sub 5 of the same constitution, dealing with executive powers, then says that, well, without prejudice to what is stated in Section 5 sub 4, the president can go to war if he has the endorsement of the National Defense Council. The National Defense Council can give approval for a limited combat, but the president has to come back to the Senate within 7 days, and the Senate, the National Assembly, must approve within 14 days. If he does not approve, the president cannot take Nigeria to war. So those are the constitutional provisions. But what has happened now is that, one, we don't have a National Defense Council so properly constituted. There's no Minister of Defense who is a critical member of that body. And in any case, all the service chiefs are there, or any other person appointed by the president. What that will mean in the circumstance will be a unilateral decision on the part of President Tinubu taking Nigeria to war. The other relevant issue is Article 53 sub 1 of the United Nations Charter, which Femi Falana, SAN, has referred to. Well, before Femi Falana, SAN, Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, mentioned that same section of the UN Charter, on military intervention on this program. And the whole rub of it is that if you go to war, you go at your own risk, because the UN will not support you, in any particular manner. It will be like an illegal intervention, and cost is involved. So these are the legal aspects of it. And of course, the Nigerian Senate has said we do not support. Where did the opposition come from the Nigerian Senate? The opposition came majorly from the senators from the northern part of those 7 states, occupying the over 1,000 square kilometers, 999 miles, which constitute the border of Nigeria and Niger. Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, Katsina, Yobe, and so on, 7 of them. And they say, no, we don't want to go to war. And what is the argument? The argument is that there are people that will be at risk. And in fact, I've seen a video where one gentleman was saying, if it was southwest bordering Niger, would Nigeria go to war with Niger and put Yoruba people at risk? These are the kind of sentiments that have attended this. And we have had persons like, Colonel Aliyu Babangida. We have had persons like Senator Shehu Sani. We have had, Chief Body George, Shehu Sani, and others, the Jamaatul Nasri Islam, expressing exactly the same sentiment and saying that the president of Nigeria cannot commit to war without the consent of the Nigerian people. That's the state of the debate. So it will appear that going to war may not be a very wise decision on the part of the president. And it is just as well that some of the stories in the papers are saying that the president is considering, and ECOWAS is also considering, diplomatic options. However, the other side of it is that France is supporting ECOWAS. And, yesterday I had a conversation with Professor Usman Yusuf on This Day Live, another program on this channel. And he was saying this could end up as a proxy war between ECOWAS involving Russia and NATO. And that the backyard of Nigeria should not be turned into a theater of war to satisfy Western interests. So these are the various dimensions to this dilemma. But I think the average Nigerian will not want war war that is going to cost over $1 billion. Where is that money going to come from? At a time when Nigerians are looking for palliatives, when they are trying to survive. And then, of course, there are ethnic, cultural, religious connections. I've had people from those 7 states saying the people in Niger are our brothers. After all, that is the same state that President Buhari said, if you people disturb him after being president, he will go to. Now you have denied President Buhari the opportunity to go to Niger with this tension. But the problem, the bigger problem, is about democracy. It's about good governance. It's about all these issues about leadership.
Well, when it comes to international relations, as much as possible, countries try to avoid going to war, and so would rather explore other diplomatic options as much as possible before a declaration of war. Now, when ECOWAS met last week, Sunday, under the chairmanship of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Tinubu, they had said that they would give an ultimatum, or they had given an ultimatum to Niger that under 7 days, if they didn't return return to status quo in terms of a civilian democracy, then they would use military force if required. However, they did say that they were going to explore diplomatic options and have conversations. Now, when it comes to diplomacy, there are a lot of issues to consider and a lot of areas to employ. And we had seen that General Abdulsalam Abdulsalami had gone to Niger on behalf of ECOWAS to initiate conversations with the coupists. However, as we've seen, after 7 days, it didn't yield much result. And so Nigeria and the rest of ECOWAS countries, the countries making up ECOWAS, have a conversation to have. They have a decision to make in terms of would they make good on their promise to employ military force because the Niger coupists have refused to listen or perhaps go back to democratic rule and release the president, President Bazoum. Following this, the expiration of the deadline given and the ultimatum given, another meeting was convened by President Tinubu yesterday in Abuja as well. And unfortunately, the outcome of that meeting in terms of their next steps as to whether they would go into Niger with military force isn't very clear. What we do know is that the Nigerian people, with the Senate as a spokesperson, has said they would not support Nigeria, or they wouldn't support Nigeria going into war as part of ECOWAS. Beyond that is the attendant effect of war, which now, post that announcement, is being analyzed, is being evaluated. One that has been said a number of times is the cost of going to war. We had Professor Badejo on the show last week, and he asked some pertinent questions with regards to this declaration of military force being employed in Niger. Beyond that, there are also reports of the effect already on the northern states that border Niger. Many of them have talked about how their businesses have already been affected. They trade across the border with their Nigerian brothers and sisters, and this has already been affected in terms of business and economic activities in these states. Beyond that, what has been highlighted again and again is the humanitarian crisis that we potentially have on our hands if we do go to war with Niger. Along those countries, we're still grappling with the effect or trying to get back to pre-Boko Haram invasion of the Northeast and other northern states. We have a humanitarian crisis on our hands. We have internal refugees in our own nation. So the last thing we want to begin to grapple with is the cost of the humanitarian crisis that would come as a result of going to war. These are the conversations. On the other hand, as I still argue, is the fact that Nigeria, as a superpower in this region and beyond this region, across Africa, wants to demonstrate its might and protect the democracy of African countries. Again, there's a conversation around interference from the international world and who really is behind or is interested in a war in Niger or perhaps coups across the African continent. I believe that these conversations and these questions will be answered in the next few days, and we should watch. But as been advised or suggested to the president, it is important to put Nigeria first when the decision would be made at the end of the day. Move on to our next story. The Niger Delta Exploration and Production Company on Friday unveiled its new corporate identities, which include a new name, a new logo, and official colors at a well-attended grand event in Victoria Island, Lagos. The fully integrated indigenous energy company is now to be known and addressed as Aradel Holdings, a name influenced by the company's heritage, founder's legacy, and future industry path. According to its promoters, Aradel Holdings serves as the mother organization to 4 distinct subsidiaries with a multifaceted operation which extends across the upstream energy business, gas processing, refinery, renewables, and other investments. With 30 years of uninterrupted operations, Aradel Holdings started as Midas Drilling Fund before it was rebranded as Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC in 1996. By 2010, Aradel Holdings had commissioned a mini refinery for the refining of crude produced from the Ogbele field. Management says the company will not relent in its pursuit of creating an energy mix that is both sustainable and accessible to all, while also achieving net zero emissions.
We have a robust and very well articulated strategy to take full advantage of the opportunities that lie ahead, while at the same time managing the attendant risks.
Most local companies have died because they do not adhere to the principle of corporate governance. So Aradel is a great example. They have made significant return to their joint venture partners. And today I have not heard NNPC speak in the room, but I can tell you that this is one of the companies that NNPC Limited is proud to associate with.
The Nigerian Midstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, which is to recognize the excellence set by the Niger Delta Exploration and Production PLC and all its subsidiaries in the upstream and midstream sectors of the oil and gas operations in Nigeria over the last 3 decades.
Partnership is a core Chevron value, and we're happy, very happy to be part of the success story of Aradel. And I'd like to reiterate Chevron's unwavering commitment to continuing to strive to be partner of choice in building productive, collaborative, trusting, and beneficial relationships across the Nigerian oil and gas industry.
We had a whole captive hall of people, and the first question they asked was, is this company owned by the federal government of Nigeria? And we said no. And it was like you must be high on drugs to come and talk to Bunyan Energy that you are going to supply gas. Indeed, we achieved that. And today, we are the only non-JV gas supplier to Bunyan Energy.
I guess some people will be wondering what does Aradel mean. As Africans, we love telling stories. And the name Aradel is not an existing word. It's a creation of the stories that brought us to the point where we are. In that name, we are fusing a very rich heritage and past to a very bold and aggressive future. That name can be interpreted from 3 verticals. The first vertical is that the word Aradel itself is an acronym of the DNA of the company.